Some fantastic conversations about ego versus self-love and the importance of community. I'm just like, oh, there was one more. Yes, of course, living from the heart, which is why I feel like we're all really here. So thanks again so much, Cristian, for being here.
Thank you so much, Alicia, and welcome everyone. I'm very excited to be here with all of you today and share a little bit more about my journey and the work I do and some key things that I have learned along my life that have helped me to become a better version of myself and to live my life closer to my heart. So yeah, I'm very excited about today. If you have any questions during my talk, please feel free to interrupt me and we can have a conversation as well. I guess the basis of my conversation today is about what it means to live from the heart and what it means for a man to live from the heart, because for us men, it's very difficult to live from the heart when we live in a society that has conditioned us to live from the head, and this comes from childhood, our ability to express our feelings and to connect deeper with others. We live in a very masculine society that tell us to grow up, to get our shit together, to perform and to become someone. So it is an interesting topic because in that process we deny our feelings. I was having this conversation with a group of men and women only a couple of weeks ago. Women were saying, well, men don't know how to express. If I only knew what my partner was feeling. And I was sharing that for most of us men, it's very difficult to express our feelings not because we don't have them, but because we don't know how. And that starts in the childhood. It's like, how do you express your feelings when you have been told to toughen up and to be strong and to perform, and to do things. So I call that the denial of the feminine, right? My belief, based on studies I've done, is that the healthy masculine is a masculine who incorporates the feminine elements into his life. So the masculine is the drive, is the certainty, is the direction, is the ambition, is the passion, and the feminine is the flow, is the compassion, is the caring side, is the softened part, which is vital, to live a healthy life. So the masculine is the head, the direction. The feminine are the feelings. But we have suppressed the feminine side of ourselves. And this is for men and women, right? So we live here. So we haven't allowed ourselves to feel. And it's very difficult, and that's why today I also want to talk about the importance of community and having healthy relationship with other men around us, because we don't have the spaces to go and talk about feelings, because we men, most of us, we don't talk about feelings. So that's why, men's circles are so powerful and so important, or building community around men. So then we can sit together around the fire or with a cup of cacao, or just with some healthy habits to share how we feel. So in that process, we heal. Most of us men, we carry a lot of guilt as well, because, we make mistakes, we hurt people. And usually we men, because it's difficult for us sometimes to express our feelings, the people we hurt are the people we love the most. Usually our ex-partners or current partners, children, families. So it's important to stop and observe. And that's why mindfulness practices are so important and so powerful, because mindfulness practices allow us to stop and reflect and observe. We don't stop enough because we're busy, because we are busy achieving things or doing things, to earn our place in society. So we don't allow ourselves the time to stop, reflect, and feel. Meaning, we don't allow ourselves to connect with that part of us, that is the part of us that feels. And in the process of not stopping, we neglect our feelings, we neglect that part of ourselves that needs to express as well. So what do we do instead? We keep busier and busier, so then we avoid feeling, and then we become tougher and tougher to the point that we lose connection. First of all, with ourselves. So the moment we lose this connection here, we lose the connection with the rest. And then it's very difficult to connect with our families, with our friends, or with the people we love. And when we want to express love, it comes here and it's difficult to express it for the same reason. So that's why it's so important to have this conversation and being aware of where you are at right now. So we don't take the time to stop and consider these things. So my question to all of you now is, where are you at? You know, how connected are you with your feelings? Do you allow yourself to feel? We don't allow ourselves to feel. And this is for men and women as well. So it's important to stop and acknowledge how we feel and remember that it is okay. That when we were children, you know, when you were 5 or 4, you used to do all these things and you used to have this flow and you would cry and you would express freely in a way that is deeper than most of us adults, grown-up men do, because we forgot. So it's a beautiful reflection to have, because the moment we realize that and we go deeper within ourselves and we start incorporating mindfulness practices like meditation, yoga, breathwork, connection with nature, this will allow us, you know, to go deep and start connecting with that part of ourselves. That is the part that feels. So for that, sometimes it's very difficult, because when we build our lives based on the significance that brings, you know, to perform and to work hard and to have an expensive car or to do all these different things that give us self-worth. So how do you start? Which is the question I always have. How do you start? How do I start into this? And the first starting point is stop and reflect. Where am I? Where do I want to be? What is missing in my life? Connection, most of the time. Or I'm carrying all this stuff. And we carry guilt, we carry shame, or we carry all these different things that they accumulate, and then they become heavy, and then we become stiff. You know, so when you stop and you start going a bit inwards and reflecting on your life, then we kind of start, you know, doing little things step by step. And you know, we start with reflection, with meditation, or we start by connecting with other people. Where do we find these people? Because usually we surround ourselves with people that are in the same place. So at work with the colleagues, we have these very shallow connections, or with the friends, we meet around at the barbecue, or we go to the foodie or whatever. And then we do all these things that we stop us from going deeper. So there are communities everywhere where you can reach out, you know. These days, technology allows us to put a post on social media or just look for groups, you know, men's circles or community activities. And the first step is hard, because you need to leave your comfort zone, which is your current environment. But it's worth it, because the more you connect with other people, and every time you join a community, you will find that we have all been there. You know, for all of us men, no matter where we started, we have all been there. So communities of men are very open and welcoming if you need help or if you need to reach out. Only like last month here, because I'm based in Australia, right? I was born in Chile. I have lived in Australia for about 16 years. And a couple of months ago, we had 3 suicides in a month, men, that were very advertised. In Australia, that's a lot, because here is nothing happened here, right? And it was like, wow, why? So it sparked the question within me. It's like, why a man feel like he's so lost and have no hope and no one to reach out to kill himself? So it made me question my own place in society. What am I doing to create spaces for men to reach out? How come someone who lives around the corner killed himself and no one knew about it? So I think all of us have to have a responsibility. And we live in this world now with it's all about me, and it's like, we so focused on ourselves and we stop connecting. That's why community is so important. That's why in the work I do, I create communities and I encourage people to connect, and not just connect at my events, but outside my events. So we can start building this community and start looking for each other. We forgot how to look at people in the eyes. We forgot that. We go to events, and even, I also teach yoga. You go to a yoga class and people walk in with their mats. They put their mats, they do their practice, and then they leave without connecting. So it's so important to connect, but it starts with us, by being an example, by leading the way with the things that we do. So whether you are struggling right now, or whether you are in a place where you are leading, it's very important that we become an example, or that we reach out to others. Because someone who's doing well, we always want everyone else to do well as well. So it's very important that if you are in a place right now when you feel that you're struggling, that you reach out to a man who's doing, that you can see as someone who is doing a bit better or is in a better place, and connect. It's so important to connect. We isolate ourselves. It's like a downward spiral, right? You feel bad, and then you feel worse, and then worse, and you isolate yourself. But we can do the same in the opposite way. We start reaching out and connecting with community and just going out there. And if you can't find a community, start your own community, right? Because technology these days allow us to connect across countries, as we're doing it right now. So just put the call out there. Are there any men who would like to meet around the fire, or or just meet on a circle once a week, just to talk and check in, and share where you're at? And we all can do this, I think that we are all born leaders, and that's the masculine, So it's about using that energy in the right direction. I always encourage people when they come to my event, and I say, look, if today a little flame ignite in your heart, take it with you and make your own fire, and invite others to gather around your fire, so they can take their flame and create their own fires. And that's how we expand, and that's how we keep sharing the love. So community is so important. It's the foundation for healing this world, but it starts with us as well, So that's also very important. This is an element I wanted to, yeah, please.
Oh, I was just going to say really quick. I remember you speaking to me a little bit previously about the differences that you saw in that regard in Chile versus Australia.
Yes. So culturally, I've experienced in different cultures that we are more connected with our hearts in certain cultures, and more disconnected from our heart in other cultures. Like in South America, right, Latin America, we're very connected with our heart. We're more open. So we're more social, we're more touching, we're more open to share our feelings. And that's because our culture, we are more in that space, and our mothers, encourage us to feel, and we have these connections. So in Australia, it's a bit different. It's colder, and you can see that in South America, we're more connected with our heart than probably in Australia, in the way of expressing and acknowledging our feelings. And it's interesting because I was sharing with Alicia the other day that that's the connection with the feminine. And it's like, there is this perception that in South America, there is this macho mentality that, we're strong. But that has to be with relationships. But in essence, and the way we are being brought up, we are much more connected with our feminine because we can express our feelings more freely. Whether in societies like Australia, for example, it's different in a different way. So here, it's more equal, men and women, but that's because it's a more masculine society in both ways. So women are more masculine, and men are less in touch with their feminine. So everyone is super independent, and it's a very interesting thing that I'm still reflecting on and figuring out, because it will depend where you grow up. But at the end of the day, it has to do with how you were brought up in your family. That's why it comes down to family. Family is the foundation of society. And I was asked this question the other day in an interview. I was asked, so what would you tell to mothers to grow children more in their heart? And I said, look, for a mother to grow a children in their heart, the mother has to be connected to her heart. Because if the mother is connected from her heart, it's very difficult that she will raise a kid connected with his heart. So in my case, my mom is the expression of unconditional love, until today. And she was so connected. So she gave me those gifts, which is beautiful. And, but also, of course, I went through a lot as a child when my mom and my dad had all these challenges and I was in the middle. So that gave me a complete understanding of, how a relationship works. And I guess it allowed me to develop this perception and this intuition to be there in the middle and trying to balance this. So mom was always there. And I think is important about this conversation is that I love my dad and I love my mom, because every time they had challenges, my mother always told me, Christian, your dad and we have challenges. However, your dad loves you. So never forget that. So I never had, I was always loved by the two of them, and none of them put me against the other. My dad always said, you need to honor your mother no matter what. And my mom said, your dad loves you, so respect your dad, he loves you. And I felt the love. So I think these days we play these roles when we put children against each other. So it's very important that parents, don't use their children as a shield to protect themselves, which is something that is very common these days. So I was very fortunate on that space. Something else I wanted to talk about is about ego versus self-love or self-worth. So we're talking about the masculine and the feminine energies, and it's like they're both beautiful energies and they're both highly necessary. Okay, so when we talk about ego is needed. I mean, we need ego to protect ourselves, especially when we suffer or when we go through challenges or difficult circumstances. So ego is a tool that balances self-love. So when we are born, we love ourselves, like unconditional love, and our ego is very minimum. We don't have ego. We don't have a sense of self, of identity. But as we grow up and we've been told things, our ego start coming up, because first of all, I'm an individual, so it's me, I exist. So in that moment, I'm still here. In that moment, the ego shows up in your life. And then we start this battle of the ego versus self-love. So every time something happens to us that affects our self-love, go down, and to balance it, we increase our ego. So out there, the more ego we have as men or women, it means that there is some lack of self-love there. And this is everything I share is based on my own story or what I have experienced. So for example, that's why we do work on ourselves. And that's why we practice mindfulness, because when we practice mindfulness, or we do work on ourselves, we realize that we have wounds that we need to heal. So every time I heal my wound and I increase my self-love, my ego starts disappearing because I don't need it anymore. It's very important to be aware of that. But at the end of the day, everything we are talking about here comes back to acceptance, how we accept who we are and everything we have done. right? Acceptance first, forgiveness for ourselves and others, gratitude for everything we have. And then with that, we can start allowing ourselves to be okay with how we feel. And through that, love will come through. And as love comes through, we can start being more connected with our hearts. And that will improve the quality of the life of the people around us, and of course, our own quality of life. Do you have any questions? Is there anything you would like to discuss, or is there anything in particular you want me to talk about moving forward?
Gentlemen, feel free to pop in, or if you don't have any, do you have anything?
Not really. I just had to pop out for a second, so I didn't catch the last bit. But I'm a bit of a contrarian on some of the stuff that you say, so it's kind of a bit difficult for me because.
That's great. Please.
Right, well,
I mean,
so for instance,
share.
I'd use an example of a niece that's now fully grown as a functional woman. She just had a couple of children and everything, and you use the example of feminism having these emotions and more in touch, and it's something that kind of gets me a bit because I don't necessarily buy into that. And what happened in her case, I remember her running into a shop, a very big object when she was a small child, and just getting up and running off. Now, give it another 6 months down the road, because of the perception that women should be more emotional. Every time she ran into something, she started to cry. So I asked the question, are some of these things more personality type rather than male or female? And in a way, are we restricting this concept of emotions and characteristics being male or female? Surely they're just holistic in everybody. Why do we have to define one thing as male or female? Surely it's a social construct more than actually a genetic thing. So maybe I'm just not going off on the wrong tangent there, but I'm
That's
just
great. This is please, yeah, keep going. This is beautiful. Please.
And the reason why I think it's important on a masculine level, because the reason why a lot of men don't want to talk. What they want to do is they want to go to a place that they can feel connected. And for instance, with a conversation, I listen to my wife on the phone. She can talk for hours, and I think, well, you're not really talking about anything, but that's the joy. She loves that connection. But equally, if I can pick up the phone and say, can I come and see the horses today? Oh, do you need help with the horses? That makes me feel connected. And when we're there, we're not saying a lot. So it's a different form of therapy. Yes. I was a counselor myself, and I find that counseling is very feminine. And I think that's one of the problems that males have got, is they haven't got enough therapy that is more masculine based, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Because firstly, what is masculinity? What is femininity in the first place?
Yes.
So I don't know. I just had a rant there, so I apologize. But
that's great. No. This is great. So I need to step back a little bit because there are a few concepts that I want to explain before. When we talk about energies, we're talking about masculine energy and feminine energy. I'm not talking about gender here.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm just talking about the energies of masculinity, the masculine and feminine energies, right? The polarities, which is creativity, feelings, feminine energies. So we just put in it's a label to the energies, right? Yeah. And then we have the label of direction, mindset, like getting things done. So we humans, we define, because we have two genders, right? We have two genders defined. Now these days, things have changed, but traditionally we have two genders, right? We have men and women. So what defines us is that a female, most of them might have more feminine energy than masculine energy, right? And a male will have more masculine energy and less female energy. But all of us have both energies. So the basis of creation is the dance between the masculine and feminine energies. Nature, everything is created like that, right? So that's the foundation. Now, when we define masculine energy, we're talking about, as I said before, direction, it's a grounded energy, is passion, is drive. Feminine is more flow.
But then in history, if you look at history, look at the nature, a spider, a female spider is the stronger creature, and it actually, a lot of the time, will actually eat the male. And so it's got more direction. So in nature,
no, but that's it doesn't
also,
really matter.
society.
We're making an assumption here that one energy is stronger than the other.
Okay, hold on, you two.
Wait. No, it's good.
You're both talking over each other, so we're gonna take a pause. And each one of you gets to take a turn. I know you're excited. I am grateful that we're going to have respectful, shame-free, no judgment conversation, but we just have to take turns. Yes, I know. Perfect. I think it's great. I'm just, I'm like, I saw you both talking over. I'm like, nope, stop.
Okay. What I want to say about the example about the spider is that we're making an assumption here, right? That one energy is stronger than the other. They're both strong. They're both the same value. We're not saying that masculine is strong and feminine is weak. So we have the idea that when you feel stuff, you're weak, which couldn't be further than the truth. Now we are making an assumption that the female spider, has more feminine than masculine. We don't know that. So all of these are assumptions, right? I'm just going to the basis, and everything I'm speaking here comes from tradition, from this is the lineage of maybe yoga, the yoga path. But if you study the yoga path, if you study the Buddhist path, if you study the Taoist path, which is the Chinese path, or even if you study science, we still in science we talk about left brain and right brain, which is all of them. They're all the same thing. Some of them were written 5,000 years ago based on observation of nature, and some of them has been written by scientific people who have done studies in the brain and talk about the right and the left. All of those things speak about the same thing. And we all come to the same conclusion that there are two types of energies. One is more direct, and the other one is more flow and connected with emotions. Okay? So that's the foundation there. Now, I'm an engineer myself, right? So I study hardcore engineering and physics and all this stuff. And then I became a Reiki healer, and then I became a yoga teacher and a breathwork. So I've studied the philosophy from all these different paths, plus the science. So what I'm talking here is not my idea of things. It's just what I've learned based on all these different things that now we discuss. So when you go back to the basics and we realize, okay, we have these energies. Now, how do we perform to live a healthy life? There has to be a bit of a balance there, right? So we identify male with having more masculine energy than feminine energy. But when the male doesn't connect with any feminine energy at all, it's very difficult for the male to express the feelings. And that's the only thing I'm saying here. That for
Christian,
a male,
for an example, just really quickly. Please. So oftentimes I would hear that women who are high-level executives and whatnot, and women who run businesses, they are far more in their masculine energy than their feminine energy. And sometimes there can become an imbalance within ourselves. To just kind of give an example for you from like a woman's side. So it's not that we don't have feminine moments. It's not that we can't feel that, but sometimes like we can become imbalanced and we have more masculine, and that can present in a lot of different ways. Like I look feminine tonight, but most of my life I've spent heavily in my masculine energy, running businesses, working in manual labor, working like with horses, doing all those different sorts of things. And it's taken me a lot of time to be able to come into a more centered, grounded space within myself of more balance. because even though I did all those things, like sometimes I was also a Latin dancer. So I would put on my frilly dresses that were super like sexy and get and do my makeup all that and go dance salsa or tango, which is an extremely feminine form of dance. So that's just my example for you, that like from the lady side of the energy, because it's definitely not gender, it's just energy. Tyler, I feel like you have a great thing to add to this piece of the conversation.
Well, so it's funny that you're talking about salsa being a feminine energy. My wife and I took burlesque dancing together. That's feminine energy. But I did, my dance was to a salsa and a tango, and it's actually remarkably masculine. So I think, again,
well, I think that depends on the lead and the follow. So to me,
Yeah.
because I like as a semi-professional Latin dancer, I can both lead and follow. But when I was a follow and like in that representation of traditional, like feminine, like what you would look like, that was more my reference point of being able to just like lose myself in that beautiful exchange of equal partnership. As like in Latin dance, it is very masculine, I feel like, as the lead, and very feminine in the follow, and being able to find like the perfect balance between the masculine and feminine energies as they intertwine in dance.
Yeah, no, and I think that's one of the things that I've loved about growing up in the arts and dancing for as long as I have, that again, it's always, it entertains me how it's viewed as this kind of feminine expression dance. And I'm like, I have never felt more embraced in my masculinity than when I have had the opportunity to dance. And in fact, I've never gotten laid more in my life than when I can break out the dance moves. You know, it's amazing, that energy that comes from it. You're like, I can move everywhere. And well, yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's right. Exactly. And a man is more like embodied. Like oftentimes they're struggling because I hear that men feel like they're more just kind of like a walking head sometimes, disconnected from their body. And when a man is dancing, you are fully like within your body, especially dependent upon which style of dance you're doing, in my personal opinion. And us ladies like to surrender to that experience in a beautiful fashion, and we can just like come into ourselves, even like us, like really alpha sort of ladies like myself, getting to just surrender to that safety of an excellent dancer that will hold you in that space of healthy masculinity, if that's helpful at all.
It's interesting how when control comes into the picture, it's all about control. You know, the control. When we talk about control, right? Control is a very masculine quality. And staying in control is a super masculine quality. So when we talk about relationships, when we talk about the way you feel, you know, when you feel something, you don't want to feel that. So we suppress it and we keep control, because the masculine energy within us doesn't want to feel, want to suppress the feeling, because the masculine want to be in control, because it knows that if you feel, especially if you feel too much, you will lose control. And that's the dance between the masculine and feminine energies within all of us, right? Now, just to add something to the previous conversation, when someone cries too much and can't function because it's feeling too much, that's someone who lacks masculine energy in a way, which is like, okay, you need to feel, but so it's the balance. So that's what I'm saying. It's like they both energy equally important in men and women, but it's about having the balance, right? I guess the conversation I was having before is that we men, we're being told not to feel and to be strong, but with that strength, we deny our feelings, and then we become cold. And it's like, we might believe we're doing great, but I will ask my partner, I will ask my wife, what do you think? I will ask my children, what do you think? And they will tell you the truth, what they experience about you, how connected you are, and how, it's like, it's very, and this is a very masculine thing to do, because we men, and that's very masculine, straight away, we believe we are like superheroes, right? We got it, And that's the ego part, which is masculine, right? Which is needed, because if we didn't have ego or drive, we will still living in a cave, right? Everything you see around, all these buildings and progress, is a very masculine quality. And that's why there is so much inequality in the world, because it's a lack of feminine energy, which is, I had this partner a while ago, and she was working with empowering females, and she said, look, if the world was run by female, we wouldn't have hunger, we wouldn't have inequality, because female will look after everyone. We wouldn't have the progress we have, which is, but we would have more equality, because women will have a different energy into the world. So it's very important, the masculine energy, for the things that we have to keep direction. But it's also important to know that even if you don't feel it, there is some feminine energy there that might have been suppressed. And if you having challenges in your relationships, or maybe you think you're doing right, but then what happened one day, someone can knock at the door and say, sorry, I'm leaving. I say, what? This is very common in men that, when breaking relationships, they say, I don't know why she left me, right? It's like you've been in your masculine for such a long time that you can't even feel what she's really feeling, So this is such a common thing amongst men that we don't get it. It's like, why she's going? I mean, I work hard, I provide, I give the food, beautiful house, I give her everything she wants, but there's no connection. And that's the lack of the feminine. So for men out there who are working hard for your family, I would say, man, the most important thing for your partner there is that you are connected. First of all with yourself, and then with them. Because at the end of the day, the provider thing, that's secondary. And you will see it. There's plenty of this stuff out there. So that's what I'm saying, is like, ask your partners, and that's the lack of connection with the feelings and the expression of love as well. And it's difficult for men, because we have, as I said before, we have not been told to. We have been conditioned to live this way. And then when we have experience or witness, feminine energy, it's more like, I'm out of control. It's like, that's why I'm saying it's the balance. It's not that, it's the balance between, and for male and female, we have to balance it. We need a bit of direction, but we need to feel. Now, we condemn certain feelings, especially men, because the way most of us men express our feelings, we get angry and we carry anger. And that's the form of most common feeling for us men. Now, there's nothing wrong with feeling angry. There's nothing wrong with it. The problem is what we do when we are angry. You know what I mean? So it's not that you feel angry, it's that, what do you say when you're angry? What do you do? How do you treat others? So then we condemn the feeling, and then we suppress the feeling, and then we have this thing. And then it becomes harder and harder and harder, and we carry this stuff, and to the point that we explode. And when we explode, we hurt people, usually the people we love the most. So that's why it's important to, how do we let go of the anger? By sitting and talking, by letting that come through. And then you see that when that comes through, if you have the space to talk with men around the circle, that comes, and it's a freedom that comes with it. But it's very difficult to at first acknowledge that, because we're tough, we don't feel. And I've been there myself. We just finished a men's retreat 2 Saturdays ago with 30 men that went super deep into this. And it's like, I have been a participant of many men's programs, and most of the men's programs are very like, oh, we're warriors, it's a lot of rah stuff. And the way we did this event with my colleagues, we decided to do something different, soft and more gentle. And we have this idea that to heal or to move forward, it has to be painful, which is there. And it doesn't have to be that way. That's the softening part that we need a bit more. So then we can live life with more ease. Can we live life with more flow. You know, a life that flows is a life that has a little bit of feminine in it, right? It's like for me, I always had like two different lives. I was the engineer working in corporate, you know, doing all these things, big projects, leading with people. And then at night, I would play in my rock band and I would be crazy, dancing, partying, super connected. And then I changed that. I was doing some arts and crafts and music and all these things that were more my feminine side or my flow or my creative side. So if you struggle with thinking about masculine and feminine, you can replace that by saying your logical brain or your creative brain, which is the same thing. Okay, your creative brain that have intuition. The intuition is the creative side. The logic, the functional brain, that's the other one, which is connected to the masculine, and the intuition is connected to the feminine. That's why I said to women most of the time, you know, you have this amazing power because you have intuition. Use it. But sometimes we confuse intuition with fear, and that's a big thing. You know, so we need to. That's why we need to do the work. Anyway, so I used to have these two different lives. So now I've been able to integrate those because I have a very strong masculine, and I know that. And when I'm in my masculine, I'm like, whoa, no one can stop me. And I'm direct, and I can do things. But I also have a strong feminine that allows me to be soft, hold space, be kind, be nurturing, be loving, which is something that for us men sometimes is difficult, you know? So it's about nurturing both side of us. And it's about, and that's what I mean by living from the heart, you know, living from the heart. You don't have to not be a man. You should live from the heart and take action when you have to. It's like holding space, which is most of our role in relationships for men. Our role is to hold space. So what does it mean to hold space? Is to be there, hold the space. So the feminine or our partner can express. It's like being the big tree there, when you're strong, grounded, there with your branches. So the feminine, your partner, the butterfly, can play around and dance and sit on your tree and know that she's safe because she's there, holding space, creating this space. Now,
Can I hold? I just want to check with Di and make sure, like, did you have anything that you wanted to bring forward and ask or say after we had our big conversation? I just wanted to make sure, speaking of holding space, I'd be like, before we go too far.
No, I mean, I think it changed for me the frame of reference because when you said male and feminine initially, I was thinking about it in a biological sense. Yes. I wasn't thinking as a more construct within Earth to describe energy. But they're not. But obviously, I still do have an agenda about calling one a male and female. When I think it's more of a universe energy rather than actually either gender. I think this is just part of creation as such.
Absolutely, and you are absolutely right. That's what I'm suggesting, that when we talk about masculine and feminine energies, we can think about left brain or right brain, but it's universal, right? It's like, there's more to that, but it's exactly what you said. You know, I was talking about this yesterday. When we talk about the universe, we spoke about the universe. When we think about what is the universe, and we think about the universe, something that's like out there and it's huge. And if we were outside the universe, we will see back there and say, what is the universe? I am the universe.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I don't come into this world, I come out of it. Like a tree. We don't see ourselves like a tree because we don't have roots. But basically the tree grows from the earth. And my physical body comes from the fruit I eat and the meals that come from the earth anyway. So all of this stuff is universal energy. It's no different between me and a tree. We both energies are always flowing, you know. Holding space. So when masculine energy is action. So actually holding space for a man in a relationship, the way we hold space is to remove the masculine energy.
Yeah.
Because the masculine energy want to fix. And that's the biggest problems in relationships, because when a female comes to us and says, hey, I have this problem, let me tell you all about it. And you're like, man, you just do this and that, you fix it. And we want to say that. And females just want to be heard. But we want to solve problems. I guess one of the biggest frustrations for men in relationship is that they just want to keep the female happy, and we can't, because we can't understand, because we're tuning our masculine to understand the feminine, or their expression and all the stuff. So holding space is actually the absence of the masculine. So we don't try to fix, we try to avoid take action, and we just let the feminine flow. And for that, we need to be in touch with our feminine, so we can allow that to happen. Otherwise, it's very difficult, because like, I have no idea what you're talking about, or you just sit there and you are not present. So most of us men would do that. We'll say, let me tell you how to fix this problem. And you say, no, just listen. No, I want to tell you, why are you struggling with this? Or we will say, okay, and we are not even present there. We are thinking about the football game or whatever. So holding space is like that. Now, how do we hold space? First, we have to learn how to hold space for ourselves. Because if we think that we have both energies, and our masculine is always telling our feminine to suppress, not to feel, men and women, everything we need to learn is to remove the masculine and let our feelings come. So they can flow. And then we can clean whatever is in there. So in relationship, we're looking for someone to hold space for us, but if we don't know how to hold space for ourselves, we will always have toxic relationships. You know, you're still suppressing your own feminine within yourself, with your masculine, and then you want someone else to do it for you. It's like never gonna happen. So yeah, so that's a fascinating topic. Yeah. Any questions? Any comments about that?
No, it was great. I really appreciate you diving into all of that and having that conversation to see both sides of it, and honoring the scientific side as well as the spiritual side, and coming into more definition for the masculine and feminine, and yeah, the universal energy of it all. Tyler, did you have any thoughts as we're wrapping up?
No, again, and I'd alluded to it a couple of times over the course of the day, that I think it's interesting that we've used that kind of language. I'd be curious to know, if we were to delve back in languages, more of our historic languages, some of the more ancient languages, if there's better words, because I definitely know in the Asian languages, there's more than just the binary of the masculine, feminine. And I know like Hawaiian has a couple of extra language, and just so I'm always curious when we use it, because language matters, words matter, it's important. You know that I preach that on a very regular basis. and so I think it's interesting, particularly in North America, how we use it, and it's become a polarizing term, where I think the human experience is one of many colors, and so I'm always curious when we're ascribing and describing energies that we feel, the language that we use to do it, especially in the modern day, because we do tend to say that's a feminine energy versus a masculine energy, and that's a modern North American trope as opposed to a standard thing throughout. So no, those are my thoughts, but great conversation.
Yeah, the Native Americans also have, I believe, several terms in regards to energy, and as well as gender, and how they revered people that were not in the two traditional camps.
Yeah. Two spirit and fluid. Yeah.
So just to add to that, that's a great conversation to have, because that goes even deeper to talk about duality, which is the foundations of creation. Every single traditional, original, how you say, lineage of philosophy and work. The polarity is always there. So it's the polarity of things, and we live in this polarity world, which is basically the work to do. When we do the work, it's like, if you put it more simple, it's about, we have to do this work to realize there is still work to be done in ourselves, that we are whole, perfect, and complete, but we cannot do it or figure it out until we do the work. And the polarity is the right and wrong, true, false, masculine, feminine. So that's the polarity, and that goes beyond any contemporary thoughts of and yeah, there's so many different terms around energy and that allude to other concepts, because actually when you think about masculine and feminine, or all these duality terms, they all come from the same origin of one thing, greater consciousness, that incorporates everything when we go back to source. So yeah, that's a whole conversation on itself, duality. So thank you for bringing it up, because there is a lot there as well.
All right.
We're coming to the close. I feel like there's just this natural thing. We've got people dropped. It's been a long day. We've been here for so long, since 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we've just been going strong. But Cristian, for anybody that might watch the recording later, where can they find you and the amazing work you're doing with retreats, breath work, yoga, coaching, all of the things?
You can find me online on Instagram or on Facebook at Yandina Yoga. Yes, Google my name.
I was gonna say, how do they spell that?
YANDIA. So NAYOYA. Sorry, I'm just a bit blank there.
No,
Do us
that's
a favor.
okay.
Type it into the notes. We'll put it up in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll put it here. Put it in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Put it in the chat and it'll be good to go.
There it is.
Perfect. Yandina Yoga, found on Instagram and Facebook. You can also find Cristian under his name on Facebook, if I remember correctly. Right, Cristian?
Yes. Thank you very much for today and for the opportunity to share a bit more of this work that I think is very important these days.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. And I know you have an exceptionally busy schedule, so I really appreciate you jumping in last minute and joining the summit and sharing your wisdom with all of us, for the people who are here and the people who will watch in the future. So hopefully our next person will be joining us in the next couple minutes, 5, or we will come to a regular close, because life happens sometimes. Things come up, and sometimes we start 2 hours early for but it's all about going with the flow. And that way it's great to, like, I'm in my feminine, going with the flow of everything. And just with a lot of gratitude to every person, every speaker who showed up today, and people, I think all the audience members contributed over the course of the day, which was fabulous. We had one of our old speakers, Michael Vaughn. He joined us from our previous summit, an amazing young man. I can't believe he's 29 already. A young Black man down in Texas who has cerebral palsy. And so it was great to have dialogue with 2 men in different spaces, and that with our last speaker.
Yeah, no, I think I loved what he had to say when him and Matthew had their bit of a conversation there. It was beautiful to be a fly on the wall for that. So
that's really cool. So Cristian, do you have any last little bits before we transition or come to a close? I know you were squeezing in a in. I know you need to run on to the
think just quickly, for every man watching out there, if you're struggling, just reach out, reach out to other men. It's interesting when you do men's work. It's so different to work with. I've done, because in my work, I attract female. Probably 85% of my audience are female.
Oh,
and
interesting.
when I started doing men's work, I realized that it's a different dynamic. There's a time, I don't know, men with men, they're very loyal. There's a different type of loyalty amongst men that I cannot experience amongst females. It's just an interesting thing. So if you're a man out there, reach out to other men, because a brother will support you always. So do that.
No,
Thank you
I
very
really
much.
appreciate you bringing that up, Christian. And I've been so grateful in my journey the last 3 years to be able to see more men's groups popping up around the world, and just seeing men supporting one another and doing more rites of passage, more retreats, more breath work. That's been a beautiful thing to come into the body and integrate that more, and just honor the process. I think you should try to be like, it takes the time it takes, without judgment. And knowing that one coach might be amazing for you, another person might not be in alignment, but they might be amazing for somebody else. And so trying to keep that space of neutrality and non-judgment while we just try out different people, be it coaches or counselors, breathwork instructors, just whatever healing modality you find, to honor who you are in your path and just stay true to that and not try and fit yourself in a box, but just honor the process.
It's wonderful. Okay, I will need
Thank
to
you
run.
so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have
You're
a beautiful
welcome.
day, and
Thanks.
I'll be in touch soon.
You too,
Yeah.
Christian. Look
Bye.
forward to it. Thanks
Bye.
again.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And then there were two.
Well, that's what happens when you co-host an event. The hosts stay.
Yeah. And in the end, the host and the co-host, we're back.
So who's hopping on next?
So next, we are supposed to have Roberto Ramirez. Hopefully he will be on here momentarily. And if not, if he just got caught up in life, he is in a different country. So there could be internet issues. There can be time zone confusions. So just doing our best as always to have grace and patience and just see what happens in the next minute.
Or 5. We can give 5.
5. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. We can cut the recording short if we need to, and just have.
Although I'm curious now, because I think my next book, I'm going to start doing research on masculine and feminine and what that means, I think, culturally in different places, how many people have expanded on that language, what that looks like. I remember doing a research paper after watching, I don't think it was Lisa Cuddy, but it was somebody like that who did a talk on, because I'm fascinated by language. And she was talking about a tribe in Australia.
Still listening to you. He got confused on the link.
Oh, there you go. And they don't have words for left and right.
Huh, that's interesting.
I couldn't say to my right, because they do everything cardinally. So you go to the north from you. Or
interesting.
we're going to go 6 paces to the west. There's Roberto.
Yay. See,
Did you hit admit?
I did.
But what I found fascinating about it is cultures that, because they're not the only one, there's other cultures that don't have that left and right. So instead of being an egocentric, because it's very egocentric, right? To my right. Well, but it's to your left. So who's right? Or who's
that makes
correct,
a lot of sense.
right? Where these cultures that don't have words for left, right, but rather are cardinally oriented, have better sense of self, better sense of community, and better sense of direction. They don't get lost because because their orientation, their worldview is based on the compass. They always know where they are within their world. And it's really, really fascinating, the social dynamics that come with that when you have to put the reference in the whole as opposed to the individual. And so I did this big, huge study into it now, but I'm triggered again. Masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, because I know that there are cultures where either it's not a reference or there are multiple reference, like there's versions of. And like even down to languages, like English used to have masculine and feminine relationships in the word choice. So like French,
like
right?
Spanish.
It's French or Spanish, yeah, where you have masculine and feminine words. And so you have a la or a la, or whichever. So to see, but we lost that. Like the English language lost that in around, I believe, 1300, 1400. And so like and so where did society move with that change? What about the societies that have the masculine? Like now my brain is everywhere. That's what I'm saying. My brain's everywhere. We got to do the research. Welcome.